close to Daniel Jones from the Giants. Daniel, is that you? Beat the Chiefs. Show me. If the Broncos and Russell Wilson can show me that they can beat the Chiefs, then I will start believing.
The crowd up. And so are this defense, and Kansas City won't snap the ball again. The Denver Broncos have beaten the Kansas City Chiefs.
Dave Montgomery on the Lions. Former Bear, gonna make this his revenge game for sure. David Montgomery gets the touchdown that ices the game. No! And there's a flag. There's flag. There's flag. There's flag. There's flag. Snap. Hold. Kick.
Denver wins! Denver wins! Let's go!
They open. No!
What happened? Oh shit.
Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Only Football Podcast. Tonight, we are recapping Super Wild Card Weekend, and we're going to give you all of our thoughts on the games as well as our MVP for each game. And of course, we're going to do our top five for the remaining playoff teams in this NFL playoffs. And of course, we're going to end it off with the Chives with Kyle. Let's get it. America is football. Football is
America. If you don't like it, you can kiss your candy ass. For the moment in time. I don't give a damn. Oh my God.
No.
You loved it.
30 to 27. No! Chiefs win. Chiefs win 30 to 20.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Only Football Podcast after a wild card weekend. I guess that's why they call it wild. I never thought about that. This was literally insane. We kind of disagreed almost on every game, including the first game that we're going to go over. But even I couldn't have predicted what was going to take place. There was a lot of different surprises this weekend. Some of them kind of sad, honestly, and some of them really fun and exciting. It's one thing I was reminded this week is that while somebody has the confetti falling on them metaphorically, somebody else is dealing with tragedy. You know, that is sports. Like you see those YouTube shorts of the confetti falling on the other team. And there was one with Washington's quarterback. He sat and watched the whole entire trophy ceremony after he lost in the national championship. He was the only guy out there. And man, it's the reality. You pour so much into this game, and when the results just aren't there, and you can personal accountability with yourself, say, I left it all on the field. Yeah. It's really hard. It's a hard pill to swallow. And there's a lot of teams that their season ended abruptly. Now, this first one isn't maybe as surprising as a lot of them. It is for some people because the Browns did come into this game as a favorite. Even though they were the road team. So that tells me that some people were surprised. But there were some other teams that were much more surprising defeats, in my opinion. CJ Stroud, it's going to scroll across the bottom. He was sensational. There's not even a better word to use. Almost perfect on the night. He is doing things that he shouldn't be able to do at his age. He is. He reminds me of another young quarterback we'll get to later, but sharp between the ears. Diagnosing blitzing, putting the ball in the right spot, taking shots. Like the confidence is, it almost looks like he's been doing this for decades. And I just can't believe this guy's a rookie. The Texans get a home win with DeMeco Ryans. And this is a bandwagon that I'm willing to get on. Rick, what do you think about all this? And what is the ceiling for this new CJ Stroud, DeMeco Ryans Texans team?
What an absolute great game, for your first playoff game if you're CJ Stroud. 275 yards, 3 touchdowns. Like that's he broke a rookie record for their first playoff game, touchdowns, yards, whatever it was. Like, what an absolute gamer this guy is, man. And to do that against the Browns defense, which has been one of the top units all season long, to, like you said, avoid blitzes, be able to carve up that defense through the air. You know, what that offense did to this defense was just spectacular. We also got to credit, you know, Singletary, 66 yards and a touchdown. And Singletary is coming from a team, the Bills, that didn't really use him a lot. You know, we always talk about the Bills' run game as being like weak and not really existent during Josh Allen's tenure. And they missed out on a guy like Singletary who has been killing it so far for the Texans. And this is after taking over a running back that was already there. What's his name? Why can't I remember his name right now?
Dameon Pierce.
Yeah, Dameon Pierce. I always forget Dameon Pierce's name.
He almost broke the single season rookie record for Houston last year. If he didn't get hurt in the final 3 games, he would have broke it.
Yeah, and to be able to come onto this team and, you know, rush for as many yards as you did and go into the playoffs, not only do that, but score a touchdown and have 66 yards in this game for this Texans team. Like the Bills missed out on one with Devin Singletary, in my opinion, but clearly they have James Cook, so they're fine. But yeah, man, what an absolute game for the Texans to have. And the defense, we have to credit the defense, what they did to Joe Flacco, right? 2 interceptions, sacks, like rushing him, giving him no time to throw. This defense did amazing things. Didn't they have like a pick 6 or something at some point?
Joe Flacco threw 3 touchdown passes in the game, but only one of them was to the
there you go. 2 back to back. That's what it was. It was like an 80-yarder, and then one, it was like right at the line of scrimmage. The guy took it and ran it in for the touchdown. It was back to back. This defense was killing it, man. This entire team, the entire Texans team, killed it at home against their former quarterback Deshaun Watson and against a top defense in the NFL this year.
Yeah, dude. And I think for the Browns, now I'm gonna take my moment of glory here. I want to say we, because I just want to add you in with me, but yeah, unfortunately we did disagree on this one. But I did think that we were gonna have a moment to remember who Joe Flacco is. I said he was going to regress and remind the world who he was. And, you know, like, it was just like the Steelers game when I was like, put Mitch Trubisky in, and you're like, oh, I don't know if that is a better option.
I don't know about that, Jim.
I don't know about that, because he was a Bear. You know him. Joe Flacco was a Bronco. He was riding a wave of luck. I'm not gonna say just luck. Like, he has some skill. Like, obviously he's throwing the ball. Yeah. But sometimes there's just a spark, and we didn't just see this with Joe Flacco. We saw this with the Pastronaut.
Yeah.
We saw this with Will Lutz. We saw this with Mason Rudolph coming in at the end of the year. So there is just an aspect where I think if you bring in a brand new quarterback and there's not a lot of film on him, they're not really sure how you're going to use him, and they have success, but eventually, you know, everything kind of falls back into place. And I think this is a game where it fell back into place. But CJ Stroud, 157.2 passer rating, which was near perfect. Yeah. He had 3 touchdowns. I would say he should have had 4, because there was a bomb downfield and CJ Stroud missed it by maybe 2 yards. Yeah. And he threw the ball probably 65 yards downfield, and it was right away in the beginning, and Nico Collins just blew past the secondary. And that's another thing. This Nico Collins, savage, the real deal, man. Yeah. And like, behind every great quarterback, there's a great wide receiver. That's just how it is. And I think CJ Stroud's really benefiting from Nico Collins. And remember, Tank Dell was another guy that was really amazing. So keeping in mind that this Texans team is actually missing a key wide receiver is insane to to get the full perspective of what CJ Stroud's doing with what weapons he has. He was 16 for 21. He threw for 274 yards. He could have threw for 400 yards in this game if he wanted to, but they decided to pull him out of the game because it was a blowout and it didn't even matter. They had 356 yards before they decided to take their foot off the pedal. They steamrolled a Cleveland defense that has been demolishing opponents all year. That's been what has kind of pulled them into the playoffs. And then when they needed them to show up the most, look, I don't know if they came out with the radio listening to 50 Cent, I'll whoop your head, boy.
I'll whip your head, boy.
I'm willing to bet they didn't. And I'm willing to bet that is the reason that they didn't end up winning this game. Joe Flacco, he entered the game 5-0 in wildcard games. So this is going to be his first loss in the wildcard round. And there was one other thing that I thought was really interesting. It was that there were only 5 active quarterbacks in the NFL that have won a Super Bowl. And we know that the quarterback is gone to a new era. We've talked about that, the Drew Brees, Manning, all that. But the 5 quarterbacks, you have Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers. Okay, they're not even a thought right now.
Nope.
Joe Flacco. And then Joe Flacco, who is the other quarterback that was Matthew Stafford. And that just leaves one quarterback, Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes is literally in a league of his own right now. It's not like Manning and Brady or Breeze and Rivers. Like, it's Patrick Mahomes, and that's it.
Everyone else,
This is a complete new generation of quarterbacks. And I think CJ Stroud's going to be one of those key quarterbacks that we're talking about a long time from now. And that's what's exciting. That's why I bring it up, is because Russell Wilson, his prime is gone. Aaron Rodgers, gone. Joe Flacco probably never plays again. Matthew Stafford, his days are numbered. Maybe 1 or 2 more seasons. But Patrick Mahomes, like, that's it. So on the other side, though, you got Jordan Love, Baker Mayfield, CJ Stroud. These are the Jared Goff. These are the quarterbacks that are still in the playoffs right now. And it's shocking to me because I'm just not used to seeing this. There's normally a couple, usually 2 out of the last 4 at least have won a Super Bowl. Once in a while, you'll get a team that's like, oh, how did the Bengals get in there? But this is crazy. I mean, Lions, Tampa, Packers. I love it. I absolutely love it. And I think the NFL is just headed in a great direction right now. Unfortunately for Cleveland, they have to go home early. But I think with Deshaun Watson coming back next year and another year in the system, I don't know how rusty he's going to be missing the second half. But he was clearly better from week 1 to week 8 than what we saw last year from week 16, 17, 18, whatever it was when he got back from I think it was a 12-game suspension.
12 games.
Yeah, that sounds right. So yeah, he was rusty last year. He came back a little bit better. I think that with the healthy Deshaun Watson, we know they got the coach. We know the defense is great. And we know Nick Chubb's coming back. I think this is a Browns team that can make a Super Bowl push next year. But with Joe Flacco, unfortunately, it's just not going to cut it.
Yeah, it was over for him, man. And I like the conversation and what points you're making with the quarterbacks, right? Because what happened just over a year ago when Lovie Smith was the head coach for this Texans team, right? What happened with Davis Mills? Last play of the season, Davis Mills throws one into the end zone. The Texans score a touchdown, and they do not clinch the number 1 overall pick. They no longer controlled who was going first between Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. The Bears did. The Bears traded it away and said, thank you, Lovie Smith. Thank you, prior coach who was the last one to bring us to greatness, to any sort of greatness. Thank you for giving us the number 1 pick. Bears flipped it, made it to DJ Moore, gave it to the Panthers. Panthers selected Bryce Young, and the Texans did not have to make a choice. The choice was made for them. It was CJ Stroud, and look where they're at because of that decision. You know, I look back at that and I'm like, Texans fans, because if I were a Texans fan, I would probably hate Lovie Smith for going for the win and not securing that number 1 overall pick, right? But to kind of leave that decision already made for you after the Panthers took Bryce Young, and yes, it could have gone the other way. They could have gone CJ Stroud, but that's not what happened. The Texans fans, in a sense, have to thank Lovie Smith now, too, for not only going for the win, but securing CJ Stroud, a guy who we are now having the conversation of being one of the next generational talents in the NFL. Texans fans, you got to thank Lovie Smith for what he did and basically, saying you are going to pick CJ Stroud after the Panthers picked Bryce Young. And at the time, you're probably not thinking that at all. But after an entire offseason, an entire NFL season, the Texans are in the divisional round with CJ Stroud as their quarterback, looking like a rookie sensation, looking like a guy who they can count on for the next decade plus, 20 years, however long he wants to play. That's the kind of guy CJ Stroud is going to be for the Texans. And you've seen that from him since week 1. One of his press conferences was, I want to make the city of Houston proud to wear Texans gear, proud to wear a hat, proud to wear a jersey, proud to wear a shirt, proud to go to those games. And CJ Stroud, honestly, you and this Texans team, you and D'Amico Ryans, what you guys have done, you guys have made the city of Houston proud to wear Texans gear starting this year. After 2 years of kind of a spiral downward, you have fulfilled that promise no matter what happens from here on out in the playoffs.
Yeah, and I've always had a soft spot. We do have some new visitors, so really briefly, I'll tell you, I always kind of have love for the Texans because, A, they were the only team that was created in my lifetime. Mm-hmm. So I remember the day that the Texans entered the league. It was
David Carr.
Yeah. And also because my dad was a golf pro, and when we moved to Jacksonville so he could golf, a person he worked with, his brother was a wide receiver for the Texans. His name was Kevin Walter. He wore number 83, and he played actually, I think he was drafted by the Giants, and then he spent time with the Bengals with Chad Johnson. And Ocho's, or not, that's the same person. What's the other guy? The long last.
Hushmanzada.
Hushmanzada, TJ Hushmanzada. Carson Palmer. And I think I told you, but one Christmas, Carson Palmer actually called me. And there was a package at my front door, and he was like, open it. And I opened it, and it was the entire Bengals. They signed football in the locker room for me.
That's awesome.
So I've always had kind of a soft spot for the Bengals and the Texans for that reason, because every time the Texans came to Jacksonville, I got to like meet all the players and go past the gate where the other fans have to stand at. I got to be on the inside of it and meet do you remember the wide receiver? God, I was just thinking of him, and
Johnson?
No, not Johnson. He's the Andre Johnson.
Andre Johnson.
Andre Johnson. They had a really good tight end at the time. It was fun. It was fun. So they haven't really been relevant. They had that 1 year with Deshaun Watson and Bill O'Brien, but it's nice to see the Texans have some success, because Texans fans are actually pretty loyal for a team that was introduced in 2002. Like, the Chargers are still trying to get fans somehow. The dope-ass uniforms, dope-ass city, great stadium, no fans. So
nothing.
Houston, I don't know if CJ Stroud, those Texan fans were proud before, and I bet they're even more proud right now.
100%.
The next gen stat of the game is that CJ Stroud averaged a career high 0.69 plus EPA, which is expected yards per attempt. So that's most by a rookie in a quarterback playoff game in this entire era. Stroud completed 7 of 8 passes under pressure for 118 yards, and he was not sacked once. And that was not because he wasn't pressured. It's because CJ Stroud was very quick with his decision making, which is what I meant when I said, man, he is sharp between the ears. He has it figured out. He knew exactly what they were doing. He's motioning. He's figuring out coverages, and he's making he's playing quarterback is what he's doing. He's just doing it at a really high level. So congratulations to the Texans. They get to move on, and next week they're going to have a tough task to go into Baltimore and play the Ravens. But I do like their odds. I do. So especially if they have this guy, and we can't even be like, well, what about the Ravens defense? Like, what about Cleveland's?
Yeah, exactly. What about Cleveland's?
What
right?
about Cleveland's?
And we said it in the intro here, and I think we're both going to go with the same person. But Kyle, who was your MVP of this game between the Browns and the Texans?
CJ Stroud.
It's easy. It's easy to go with him. Yeah.
Yeah. And it would be nice to be a little more creative and come up with something special for you guys. But CJ Stroud's performance was special. And I'm not gonna just pick somebody else when it was clearly his day. It was clearly his moment. And he's the MVP of that game. He arguably is the MVP of the season, and we'll see if he can keep it going.
Same for me. CJ Stroud all the way.
I would bet that would have been funny if you're like, I'm going with Joe Flacco. I know he threw a couple picks, but
I'm going Joe Flacco. He technically won the game for the Texans by throwing 2 touchdowns to him. So
no, he's not. He's not going with Joe Flacco. But in this game, we're going to have to talk about it. The Chiefs host the third coldest football game. I just said third. I don't know if it was fourth or second. I think third.
Something like that, yeah.
-30 wind chill, freezing. It was so cold that Patrick Mahomes' helmet cracked.
Yes.
That was insane. It's going to be the cracked helmet game. It's going to go
cracked helmet game
as the cracked helmet game. And all those old people that are like, football was way more tough in the 60s, then why doesn't the Ice Bowl have a cracked helmet?
I mean, we're just asking the question.
I'm just asking.
That's all.
I don't know. Maybe because we're stronger, faster. Maybe not smarter. Probably not. But bigger, faster, and stronger. Yes.
Definitely not smarter.
Yeah, I'll give that one to you. The Chiefs defense, man, they bullied the Dolphins. That's what's going to send Kansas City to the divisional round. And I don't know if it's Kansas City's defense or if it was Mike McDaniel's throwing like that meme you posted, the bubble screen to Tyreek or the bubble screen to Raheem Mostert. And that's kind of how it was. Screen recording Mike McDaniel's press conference. I got to wait because he didn't show up for about 20 minutes. It was scheduled at 10:15. He didn't come in until like 10:40. I don't know what he was doing, but we were all waiting. And the comment section, yeah, probably. And then the comment section, because if you're going to do that before a press conference, let's just talk about it real quick since Mike McDaniel is like
the pothead.
You can't do it and then go out there. Like you have to do it and then you have to wait 15 minutes and then you have to settle into your high, which takes another 10 minutes. It's a 30-minute endeavor. And then you're like, okay, I'm settled in. I'm going to go do it now.
And then he comes out. He's like, where the fuck is everything so bright?
You don't want to just fucking rip your pen and go out there and start peeking while they're asking you about your season being, like, holy shit, this was terrible.
Jesus.
Why does this sound so violent? I got to get out of here.
Why is everyone yelling?
But yeah, the fan base, they were in the comment section that whole time. And they all were like, fire McDaniel.
Yeah.
We're soft as fuck. We were never like this under Brian Flores. We were way more physical. Tua's got to go. It was very, very negative.
Yeah.
For a team that did average the second most offensive yards per game this season. Yeah. The Chiefs do have a good defense, so I don't want to take that away from them. That's actually the only thing that kind of has them in this position. In the Dolphins, man, no one's going to talk about it, but they're missing a ton of stars. No Bradley Chubb, no Phillips, no Xavier Rhodes. Like you get to a certain point where, and McDaniel's addressed it and he said, no, like everybody deals with injuries. To me, that's not an excuse, which is a great attitude. But for you and I to have a conversation about the game, I do think it has to come up. It's a big deal when you're missing your stars. That's, those are the bread and butter of your defense, and they're not there. And you can't put a price tag on one or two plays. Those gap plays we talk about. Bradley Chubb gets a strip sack in the beginning of the first, or Phillips gets a sack on third down. That would have been a touchdown. Those guys are missing, or Tyreek Hill, or not Tyreek Hill, but those wide receivers getting past the secondary easily from the Dolphins. So it's not an excuse. It's just a fact, matter of fact that they were missing key pieces, and the Chiefs are going to move on. I thought they looked better than I've seen them all year, which was surprising because it's -30, and it just didn't seem like the kind of game where you would see an offense get it together. But maybe there's just something about the postseason. Maybe there's something about Mahomes. Maybe there's something about Arrowhead. But they better hope it's not the last thing I said, because they're going to Buffalo next week. Rick, did this game tell you more about the Chiefs and what they can accomplish this year, or was this more of the Dolphins didn't show up for this game?
I think if I'm being
probably both, but
well,
which one is it more to you?
It's like yes, but I think this told me more about the Chiefs and what they're able to accomplish with when they're in the playoffs, when they kind of flip that switch, right? The Dolphins, look, we talked about the weather. The weather was one of the biggest topics of this game. It's going to be this. It's going to be cold. The Dolphins haven't beaten a team when the temperature is below 40 degrees at game time or something like that, right? Winless, but it did tell me more about the Chiefs. The Dolphins, we mentioned their injuries. We mentioned how the cold does affect teams. The Chiefs are kind of used to it, but just because you're used to it doesn't mean you fucking like playing in that cold. People all the time, I tell people all the time, yeah, I'm from Chicago. I went through the polar vortex. I've gone through winters. I've gone through -20-degree weather. And they're like, oh yeah. Yeah. They're like, oh, you're fine. I was like, no, I hated it. It sucked, but this kind of applies to the NFL, man. Sure, you've got your adrenaline going through these games, but that does not mean that you don't want it to be 75, maybe a little cloudy, beautiful weather, right? That does not mean that at all. So this was a huge factor. And Nick obviously says it here too, right? The cold weather was a huge factor in this game, but the Chiefs are used to it and they were able to be the better team. Now, was that the better team, or was that the coaching on the Dolphins, the Mike McDaniel side, may have been a little off? I think a little bit of both, right? Because what did we say about, and I feel like this is kind of like a theme for this wild card weekend. Some wide receivers really came out and they showed their true talents. And Rashee Rice was the one in this game. He had 8 receptions, 130 yards, and the touchdown. We talked about Nico Collins with the Texans, and we're going to talk about a couple more wide receivers moving forward. But Rashee Rice has been the guy for Patrick Mahomes in a season full of drops, full of inconsistent offense. He has been one of those guys, along with Isaiah Pacheco, who Mahomes can count on to catch the ball and to make plays. And that's exactly what he did in this game, right? Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes. We talked about him earlier. He's in a league of his own, right? And really, Travis Kelce, 71 yards on 7 receptions. You look at that and you're like, that's a solid game, but not for Travis Kelce. It's almost like a quiet game, right? Like you're thinking double yards, almost 10, 11, 12 receptions in a game. But he had what some would call in recent years a quiet game for Travis Kelce. But yeah, man, Rashee Rice was one of Mahomes' favorite targets. And I think the play calling and how they were able to get this offense going in that shitty weather was one of the reasons that I think the Chiefs really, like, for me, was the Chiefs were the ones that showed what they can do and what they have been doing in the playoffs. The defense, we cannot discredit them at all. They made sure that the running game for the Dolphins was non-existent with Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane. Devon Achane, I think, was on a pitch count, I believe, because he was a little injured. They never gave Tua enough time either, like to throw. And they benefited a lot from the play calling on McDaniel's side. Let's be real, man. You and I were criticizing the play calling all fucking game. McDaniel, that's why I made the meme. Should I throw a bubble screen to Raheem Mostert, or should I throw a bubble screen to Tyreek Hill? It's like Tyreek Hill was a non-factor. Jalen Waddle was a non-factor. You and I said it. You're double teaming Tyreek Hill. Get it to fucking Jalen Waddle. Get it to Gesicki. Get it to Raheem Mostert on a dump off or something. It just seemed like the offense never once got into a rhythm. And Tua, this is why I think the weather affected him the most. We saw the throws that he tried to make. He was not able to make them. one of the biggest critiques of Tua coming into the league, even when he had Tyreek, even when Mike McDaniel came in as a head coach, was he cannot throw the deep ball. And if he can't throw the deep ball, he cannot throw it with accuracy. And that's exactly what showed in this game. Again, I think that the Chiefs played an all-around good game, but they benefited a lot from what the play calling was on the offensive side and really the skill set on the offensive side of the Dolphins and Mike McDaniel.
Well, and the other thing about the Dolphins offense, so they go 0 for 7 on third down.
Mm-hmm.
Not even a single third down conversion. That is insane. And Miami only had 151 total yards. Are you ready for this? They only had 6 first downs in the entire football game.
Oh, shit.
6.
Wow.
Unbelievable.
That's not, I can't compute. I cannot compute.
Yeah. I was like, yo, I knew it was rough, but when you hear it, it's like, wow, it was that rough.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, Mahomes, he had a great game. He definitely, what the Dolphins tried to blitz, he beat it every single time.
Mm-hmm.
Miami, we mentioned, depleted defense, but still Mahomes had a really good game. Vic Fangio, a great defensive coordinator. I really do believe in him. I just don't know if the players are bought into his philosophy or what the deal is with that, because there's just certain guys where, in my opinion, they're so good at what they do that you almost have to keep the coach. Like Vic Fangio is a very, very good defensive coach. So that tells me like the injury stuff did matter. I highly doubt that Vic Fangio's defense would have been beaten like this with a healthy team. But not to make any excuses, they still didn't play very well defensively, and Mahomes did. He went 13 for 20 against the blitz, 139 yards and a touchdown pass. Mahomes is having a really great game, but my MVP in this one, it's going to be Isaiah Pacheco.
Yeah.
He was absolutely sensational. He had 89 yards on 24 carries, and he had the game-sealing touchdown. Mahomes really has that kind of luxury of a running game. It's not all on him. That he has a defense, he has a running game, and now it seems like, okay, well, Travis Kelce, 71 yards, Rashee Rice doing enough, 4 field goals from Butker. Okay, like everybody's doing their job, right? And with Mahomes on the team, it just seems like anything's possible. They could end up in the Super Bowl again. But you know, one game at a time. The Dolphins didn't play nearly well enough for us to really gauge Miami. It's not like that Buffalo Chiefs divisional game where it's like Buffalo went home.
Yeah.
And we were like, oh, the Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl for sure.
Yeah.
Although
just shot after shot. Yeah.
Yeah. It was. So I think next week we'll learn a lot. That Buffalo Chiefs game, now they're going to have to play in Buffalo against a team that knows how to play in cold weather. And it might even be snowing. So he's going to be my MVP, because I think that not only in this game, they relied on him heavily, but I think moving forward, he's going to be a key piece on this team if they're going to make a deep playoff push.
All right, so my MVP is going to be Andy Reid's mustache. Did you see that fucking thing? How frozen?
Oh my God. How did that happen? I saw that. I was like,
he was hiding some shit behind in those icicles.
No, in there.
Yeah,
I was like food probably.
Fucking had a cheeseburger in that bitch. That's a little hamburger helper in there. Look, I for as much as I did Pacheco and we talked about Rashee Rice and stuff, for like it's easy to go with those guys, but someone who's been solid for the Chiefs ever since they got him, Harrison Butker, man, on his own scored 14 points. 12 points on field goals, 2 extra points. That guy in shitty conditions, you can count on Harrison Butker in the playoffs too. Like that guy is consistent as all hell. Young Wei Koo is probably going to go down as one of the more accurate kickers, but in the playoffs, you don't see Young Wei Koo in here. You see Harrison Butker on the Chiefs. I'm going to give it to the special teams guy, because 14 points all on his own in a game where the conditions were dog shit for anybody to play, and he was as consistent as you can be. as a kicker. Harrison Butker gets my MVP for the Chiefs win against the Dolphins.
This is really funny. So at the bottom of every game, NFL Research has like a fun stat. So the fun stat for this one is Rashee Rice is the first rookie in NFL history to have 8 receptions and 130 receiving yards in a playoff.
Wow.
And then the Rams played. I think.
Puka Nacua.
I guess maybe Puka Nacua had 7 receptions for 180 yards receiving. Yeah. And they're like, yeah, but he's the first one to have 8 and 130. It's like, okay.
But one more.
Yeah, he
one more counts.
Puka Nacua definitely outdid Rashee Rice. But
yep,
dude, you got 2 rookie wide receivers breaking records. That's awesome. So good for both of them. Honestly, he could have been the MVP as well for the game he had. But ladies and gentlemen, it is time to move on to a game.
Oh, God.
A game that put an entire city on the map again. A game that reminded everybody that there will be no dry spell. There will be no lapse in quarterback play. There's not going to be, which is crazy, right? Every team goes through this besides the Green Bay Packers. Every team. It's unheard of.
Something in the water over there. I think it's steroids.
I think maybe Vince Lombardi was into witchcraft and there's something in Lambeau, but this game was on the road. I don't know.
Yeah.
But Jordan Love was absolutely just unreal, really. Yeah. It was unreal. He introduced himself to the football world as the new quarterback for the Green Bay Packers and not Aaron Rodgers' backup. No. This is Jordan Love's football team now. He went absolutely insane. He had the type of game that people might be saying, hey, maybe you should have put Jordan Love in week 18 last year and maybe the Packers would have been in the playoffs. And now I don't know if that's entirely fair. It's a different season and a different story, but Jordan Love has absolutely just from when we saw the Packers like 3-5, it was over, man. We weren't even talking about the Packers. Like it was like, oh my God. I remember I was like, oh man, I knew that they weren't going to easily win 8 games. No. I was wrong. The Packers turned it around like towards the end of the season. And the real question was this going to be able to roll over into the playoffs? Were the Packers going to be able to take the good quarterback play from Jordan Love and bring it into Dallas, a team that's got the number 2 defense, number 1 offense, and they were at home? Was he going to be able to have even a shot in this game? And a lot of people said no. And Jordan Love came out. They came out. I think Matt LaFleur scripted like the first 12 plays, and they all worked. They went straight down the field and scored on a touchdown drive that had running, it had passing, it had play action. It was absolutely just extremely balanced, and Aaron Jones was clearly just having himself a day. And the Cowboys had no answers, and it was like, okay, well, the first drive, is that just a fluke? And then it happened again and again and again. And the Packers really, they didn't turn it on like in the middle of the game or in the middle of the first quarter. Like they came out and they were on and never went off. And I felt like there was moments where I was waiting for Dallas to kind of climb back into the game when it was 14-0. And it just did not happen. Dak Prescott, he's under a lot of fire right now. Yeah. He said that he sucked in a press conference. But to me, the story is more about Jordan Love and what he's done, because he threw for 272 yards. He had 3 touchdown passes and only 15 completions. That tells me that there's a lot of bullets left in this chamber. Like this isn't even Jordan Love, like really letting it rip. Like that's what's crazy. Yeah. He just made a couple throws and the defense made a couple plays, or Dak Prescott didn't. And it worked out. CeeDee Lamb never really got on the same page with Prescott as well. CeeDee Lamb has been easily a 100+ yard receiver every game. I think he did go over 100, but there was a lot of garbage time yards involved in that. So I don't know. I don't want to get too crazy because I've been I really enjoy watching the Packers succeed. I know you don't, but for a guy that hasn't seen my team in the playoffs for, the last 10 years, 9 years, it feels nice around this time to be able to have a team that I actually give a fuck about in the playoffs. And I know in the last year I didn't have that, so I went with the Bengals. But I really do love this story. I love the underdog story. I love the success that he's having, because to me, it's just not supposed to be happening. And I love that they're defying the odds. And it's like, if you can beat Dallas on the road, then, why can't you beat the 49ers on the road? I mean, like, when does this?
Why not?
Why not?
Why not?
That is all you can ask for as a fan base, right? You just want to know that you have a legitimate shot in some of these games. And Green Bay's defense delivered a shocking performance. So if they can bring that into Santa Clara next week, I think they got a good shot. But this could be the end of the Mike McCarthy era. I know there's a lot that I just laid on the table, but what stands out to you the most about everything that I said?
Jordan Love, man. Jordan Love and Aaron Jones. Like, it pains me a lot to give credit to the Packers, because I don't know if you guys see that flag back there, but I'm a diehard fucking Bears fan. But you know what? Doing this podcast, I have enjoyed football more than I ever have in my entire last 20 seasons or so of being a fan, right? Because I get to see, this awesome playoff atmosphere. And whether it's the Packers, whether it is the Lions, whether it's the Niners, the Chiefs, whoever it is, you have to be able to give credit where credit is due. Even if it's the longest standing rivalry in the NFL and you're the Bears fan in that. Jordan Love was outstanding. Like you said, only 16 completions, 270 yards, 3 touchdowns. Aaron Jones went off with 3 straight scores. This Packers team, God, it's almost unfair. And this is coming from a Bears point of view, Bears fans point of view, right? So it's almost unfair to just see them go into Dallas, which, by the way, they are 6-0 in AT&T Stadium, dating back to 2010 when they won that Super Bowl against the Steelers.
That stadium's 14 years old.
Oh, yeah, they are 6 and and probably a little bit older than that. I'm not entirely sure. I just know that their first trip there was 2010 for the Super Bowl, in which Aaron Rodgers beat the Steelers.
Dude, time flies. I thought that stadium was like 8 years old for some reason.
Yeah, I thought it wasn't that much older either, but I'm like, oh no, that's that old.
Yeah, because it was before we joined the military for sure.
So the Packers have just loved AT&T Stadium, right? Do they need a dome in Lambeau? I'm not going to get into that. But they loved that stadium. They went into this game, into Dallas, into the Cowboys' home turf, knowing that the entire season, Dallas at home has never trailed by more than 8 points. They got out to a 27-0 lead on this Dallas Cowboys team who was dominant at home, scoring more than, I think it was more than 2 scores than away scoring, right? Like their total scoring at home was like 10, 12 points more than away. They went up against this defense that has been very dominant all season, with Micah Parsons leading the way. They went up against this team who is America's team, and they went in there and they're like, no, we know our history against you, and we're going to continue that history, whether it be with Aaron Rodgers or now our guy Jordan Love and a couple of young receivers and Aaron Jones. Like, they went in there with fucking swagger, man. Bisaccia, the coaching assistant, I think I forget exactly what he does. I think he's defense. As he's going into the tunnel, he's yelling, "How about them Cowboys in AT&T Stadium?" Isn't that crazy?
He wants to talk mother.
He wants to talk mother. They led the Dallas Cowboys 41-16 at the end of the third quarter. When you talked about that garbage time yards, garbage time touchdowns, three quarters, the only points that the Cowboys were able to score were 16. So, like, come on, right? Like this was just an ass whooping no matter what the score tells you. This was an ass whooping of the biggest proportions. And the Cowboys on the other side. Dak. Oh, Dak. Poor Dak. Poor little baby Dak, dude. Oh, this is exactly what you didn't want to happen. All season long, he proved himself who he was going to be. I'm not throwing double-digit touchdowns or interceptions. And he turned out to be the leading touchdown thrower as a quarterback, as well as having the fewest interceptions among quarterbacks. And what did he do? He threw, 2 interceptions in this game. One of them went for a pick 6, and just the rest of them, garbage time touchdowns. So this Cowboys team, and look, it's not all on Dak. It's not all on Mike McCarthy. Dan Quinn and that defense look like shit. They look like a defense that wasn't this year's defense. They look like that defense from fucking 10 years ago when they can barely limp into the playoffs, right? When the Eagles and the Commanders and even the goddamn Giants were competing for the division crown. The Dallas Cowboys defense looked bad. It looked bad. And just like you put up there, Dan Quinn's stock nosedives. It does. Is he going to be a head coaching candidate? I don't think so. I after that performance, there's going to be some calls, but what he's done through the regular season was impressive. But what really matters is what happens in the playoffs, and that defense did not show up one bit. As far as Mike McCarthy goes, we might be seeing the end of him, but I think it's going to be a few more days until they really make a decision. And Kyle and I, we talked about it. Do you really want to get rid of a coach who has improved your team overall this regular season? Like, do you really want to do that? Do you really want to get rid of Dak, who has made leaps and bounds from what he was last year? You're going to take this as a loss, as a huge loss, as an embarrassing loss. But really, the only way from here is up. And that's how this game is going to, that's how this team has to look at it, right? Only way from here is up. This is one of the rock bottoms that you're going to go through, but only way is up.
Yeah, it's just difficult because it seems like every season they have to have this positive outlook on okay, we're right there, and then next year we'll finally be over the
fitness chick.
Appreciate it. I love fitness myself. It's like they're always super, super close, right? They get right there, and then it's like, how many times are they going to tell themselves this story? And then finally you go into a year where you're number 1 on offense, number 2 on defense. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, we finally have it. There's no more, we'll be better next year. Like, we are the better versions of ourselves this year. Mm-hmm. And somehow it all just goes to shit in so fast too, immediately. So we talked about Jordan Love. Well, check this out. Jordan Love's 157.2 passer rating is the highest in a road playoff game in the Super Bowl era.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God.
In other words, this has never happened before, ever.
Fuck.
And then we talk about, who he exceeded to?
Who?
Glad you asked. Bart Starr, the first Green Bay Packers quarterback. And weirdly enough, Dak Prescott in last year's wild card win over Tampa. Now, we say a lot of things that we see and that we feel, and it's nice to have stats to back it up. Check this out. When we talked about Love and his decision-making against the blitz and pressure, Love completed all 4 passes attempted under pressure for 114 yards and a touchdown.
Oh my
Literally
God.
Every time he was under pressure, it resulted in something good. Over 100 yards and a touchdown. The Packers definitely have something special there. It is funny that Tom Grassi was mad about the Jordan Love thing, and that's just why fans don't draft quarterbacks. That's why fans don't draft anybody. We just sit back, watch, talk shit until we're good, and then we love everything. Yep. It's just what we do, man.
That's fandom, baby. That's fandom.
That's fandom. Like, if Russ worked this year, I would be like, let's ride, It's just, what do you want from us? We just want to win, man.
Yep.
Okay. You got anything left on that game? Because I'm really pumped up about this next one.
No, my MVP in that one. Yeah, real quick. I think my MVP is going to continue a theme that I was talking about earlier. Romeo Dubs, man. 151 yards receiving and a touchdown. The wide receivers, they are showing out. Romeo Dubs was a rookie last year, and we looked at him with Aaron Rodgers, and we're like, this guy's going to be somebody. So look what he does in the playoffs, man. 151 yards and a touchdown. Romeo Dubs is my MVP for this game.
You don't want to give it to Jordan Love.
Because I knew you were.
Oh, okay. I'm like, this
Jordan who?
He's like, Romeo Dobbs.
Yeah. Whoever the quarterback was that threw to him, good for him. But I mean, Romeo Dobbs.
Yeah, insane. No, I'm gonna give my MVP to the quarterback that did something that has never been done before, because it was his game to lose. It was his moment that he could have showed up not ready for. The crowd could have gotten to him. He could have got shaky. He could have thrown an early pick. Instead, he did none of that, and he put the Packers not just in position to win, but he put them in a position to blow the doors off the Cowboys. And I think that's got to be the MVP. If there really is one award, it's got to go to Jordan Love. That's insane.
And one more point I want to make, and this is more of a general point, nothing necessarily in the playoffs to do with these games, but let's take a look at these quarterbacks that we've talked about, right? Dak Prescott, 4th, 5th rounder. CJ Stroud, 2nd overall pick. Jordan Love, a 1st rounder or 2nd rounder, if I'm not mistaken. I think a 1st rounder, right? They were all taken by this organization who needed a quarterback, who needed an answer to quarterback. Maybe not necessarily the Packers, right? Because they did have Aaron Rodgers, but they kind of knew where they were headed, right? Jordan Love sat behind Aaron Rodgers for some time. CJ Stroud started the first game. Dak Prescott has weapons and was a 4th rounder, whatever, has gotten weapons just thrown at him. And let's look at the success that we see on all 3 of these quarterbacks, right? When people say the recipe for success for a quarterback is to let him sit behind this quarterback for a year or two, because then that's how they're going to succeed. You look at Jordan Love. When people say you need to start him immediately because we've got to see what he's made of, you look at CJ Stroud and Patrick Mahomes in a sense, right? He sat behind for a year. He's another example. And when you have people like myself that say get weapons around this quarterback or he's not going to be successful, you look at a guy like Dak. There is no clear-cut answer as to how to get a quarterback ready. The only person that can get a quarterback ready is that fucking quarterback. So I think really a lot of these discussions, a lot of these arguments will continue to be had, but we got to admit there is no right or wrong answer how to go about it. It is all dependent on that guy who touches the ball every single offensive snap. It's on him.
It's got to be, right? Only one that touches it, like you said, every single game. All right.
Touching it.
Rick, this game was absolutely incredible. And I remember immediately after the Packer game, I made a promise to everybody that this next game will not be a blowout. And boy, was it not a blowout. It was an amazing football game. I'm talking about the Detroit Lions hosting a playoff game for the first time in over 30 years.
What?
And then in comes this Rams team with Sean McVay. Oh, yeah. And this guy named Matthew Stafford, the old quarterback for the Detroit Lions. And there's booze and there's playoff energy. And Jared Goff coming out of the tunnel, still in the building, the crowd chanting, Goff, Jared Goff, Jared. And he says, after he sat down with like the local news the next day, and he was like, no, it was a special moment. I've never felt so loved before, ever.
Yeah.
And if you're a Rams fan, you're like, oh, up yours, dude. Like, we loved you over here. But not in this way. So the Lions, they waited their whole life. Some people, that's why the thumbnail is a person my age, and they're holding a sign that says, I've waited my entire life for this, literally. And I thought that was cool for the thumbnail, because I feel so much joy for the Lions and their fans, and I'm so happy for them. That this was just so nice to see the older generations, our generation. The kids were kind of like Oh, you have no idea, dude.
Yeah, yeah.
But for all those other groups of people, like this was such a special moment for Dan Campbell to take over this job and go 1-15. And then the next season, he didn't even start winning till around week 8 because of a 65-yard field goal. Because Minnesota getting down the field in just these crazy ways where it's almost like Friday Night Lights. Is there any curses? Like, what is it? Like, what? There's this anti-Lions barrier we can't get over. And here we go into a new season, and the Lions' expectations were to get to the playoffs. They're 13-5 now. Dan Campbell, he's just kind of he's stuck with it. He's never changed. That he is who he is. It's all about grit, toughness, hard work, loving your teammates, playing for each other, brotherhood. It's all of that. And
biting kneecaps.
Like this team has probably the most heart and soul of any team, in my opinion. Just the way they play for each other, the way they cry in the field when they win. Like this just means so much to the team. And a lot of people are saying maybe they could go to the Super Bowl, maybe not, but let's talk about the game. So the Matthew Stafford falls a little bit short in this one. Everybody was super loud, so definitely a point goes to the Lions home crowd for making it tough. But there was a 21-17 game with 4:02 left in the first half. Stafford completed 25 of 36 for 367 yards, and he shook off a ton of brutal hits that we weren't even sure if he was going to be able to come back in the game. Puka Nacua had a historic night, continuing a historic season. He had 181 that's just receiving yards, and he had a scoring touchdown. The Rams outgained Detroit by nearly 100 yards, and they battled to keep it close all the way to the end. But the final score really does accurately display what we saw on the field. It was very close the whole time. And the Lions, I think they had 4 minutes and they just kept getting first downs, and the Rams couldn't get off the field. This was, for a lot of people, the sneakiest team in the NFC. They looked at the Rams and they said, this is a team that could go to the Super Bowl. And if you think that about the Lions as well, then the Rams proved everyone right. We weren't wrong about the Rams, and we're probably not wrong about the Lions. The Rams were peaking at the right time, but the Lions are just a little bit better this year. What's your takeaway from this game? And do you think anything, any feelings about either of these teams has changed after this game? Maybe trust Goff a little bit more, something like that.
Yeah, and one of the things that I talked about prior to this game during our predictions, right, was Goff has to take care of the ball, because as soon as Goff loses the ball to a turnover, an interception, a fumble, it's like he crumbles. And he was able to do that. He passed for 22 times, 22 completions, got the 277 yards and a score. Didn't make any hasty decisions in the pocket, was pretty much calm. So credit to the offensive line, really, for the Lions. Really calm throughout the entire game. And, when you got a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery there on your team to kind of take that pressure off you, and you got an Amon-Ra St. Brown and a rookie tight end star in Laporta there, like it becomes a little bit easier when these guys are having good games, when they're able to get that extra yards after the catch, right? So I definitely trust Goff a little bit more. He didn't throw any picks. That was the big thing. He didn't just lose the ball. Now it becomes they go up against the Bucs next week, which they had a great defensive showing, and we'll get into that game a little bit later. But you're right about the whole, it just seems that the Detroit Lions love this that much more. You look across that offense, Jared Goff basically told, in social media that he was getting traded. The way he was traded was rough. You look at Amon-Ra St. Brown. He can name every single wide receiver that was taken before him in the draft, and he went in and had 110 yards receiving in this game. Look at Aiden Hutchinson, Michigan born and bred, went to Michigan, grew up a Lions fan, graduated from Michigan, got drafted by the Detroit Lions, and look where he's at now, man. Look across. Go ahead.
I was going to say, do you think that's a little like self-absorbent or a little bit of like not being happy for the other people that like, because you hear like guys like Aaron Rodgers know the quarterbacks and know the players. Like, is there a world where you're happy for those players, or do you think that's like the competitive advantage that these guys like you just need to come up with something to, piss you off every single day?
Well, I mean, you look at like what Jordan did. Michael Jordan, you saw, right? The Last Dance documentary. He had to make everything personal so he could be playing at his best. And that to me is like, yeah, you can look at it as like a self-absorbed thing, is like a dude, are you serious? You need this guy to shake your hand the wrong way to have to be pissed off against him. You could look at it that way for sure, but those are the guys that don't need external motivation. They have all the motivation they need to win this game and to look great doing it on the inside. And some people, struggle with that. They can't motivate themselves. So, I think for me, you take something like that, like what Jared Goff went through, and you want to beat the fuck out of the Rams because of the way they handled that. This is a quarterback who took the Rams to the Super Bowl. The questions arose, though, during that time. Can he win them a Super Bowl? He took them there. He didn't win them the Super Bowl. Can he be the guy? They decided it wasn't. They decided it was Stafford. And what did Stafford do his first year? Took them to a Super Bowl win. They were right about that. But now Goff is like, hey, remember when you guys traded me away to the Lions without, the respect of, talking to me about it first? I'm going to beat you. And he did. He ended up beating his former team in the Rams.
He was great last year too. Like a lot of those losses, he had the Lions with 40 points.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons I think that, for me, I was like, they gotta draft the quarterback. I don't know if Jared Goff's it, but the way he'd been playing, the record he had, the touchdown interception ratio he had for like an entire season at like week 5 of this year, it was insane. And it was like, oh, okay, they're going with him because of this reason. They're going with him because he is actually very productive and very consistent with his play at quarterback. So I think all those storylines were great for the Lions. And while I don't think, the Bucks or the Bills or any other teams we're going to talk about or have talked about are going to be like, no, we feel this win much better than the Lions. Like, come on. Yeah, it's the Lions. It's Detroit. 30 years. They haven't won a playoff game since 92 or hosted one since a year after that or something like that. So
crazy.
You got to give it to them. And the Rams, give them credit for what they were able to do to come in Detroit and make this a close game. You were 100% right in saying this score between these two teams tells the story 100%. Unlike all the other wild card games, the Rams were able to come in here. They put up some points early. Their defense was able to hold that Lions offense to only 3 points in the entire second half. But that Lions defense was better. They held them to only 2 field goals in the entire second half for the Rams. So this tale really came down to the defenses in that second half because the offense was, for the most part, pretty absent in that second half from both the Rams and the Lions. But like I said, the Lions defense was a little bit better. And they were able to come away with the win. But Amon-Ra and Jared Goff in that last drive to get that first down, they got that first down on that 11-yard catch by Amon-Ra St. Brown. That's all they needed. Then they could just knee it from there. And the Lions are moving on to the divisional round for the first time since 1992, man. What a story.
Yeah. Do you think, isn't it kind of weird that the Lions had Matthew Stafford, another number 1 overall draft pick, for over 10 years, and he never, maybe he won a playoff? No, he never won a playoff game.
No, he went to a playoff game, did not win it.
He went to one and didn't win one, but nobody ever talked about getting rid of Stafford. But Jared Goff, let's say he loses next week, maybe people are like, talking. It's just funny how there's certain quarterbacks that were like, oh no, like if you take him away, we suck. And then once you build a good team around him, it's like, okay, there's no excuses for you not winning a Super Bowl. But Stafford had Calvin Johnson, Megatron, and maybe that's all they had. But I don't know. It's just funny how we pick and choose which quarterbacks we put the blame on when they lose. And then if you had a different quarterback in, like, look at the Cowboys with Tony Romo, couldn't win a playoff game. And then Dak had a good preseason and then he becomes the starter, but it's the same thing with Dak. And people are like, now Dak's got to go. And I just don't. Yeah, it's weird to me.
Yeah.
I'm really noticing it this postseason more than the other years. I don't know if it's because a lot of controversial quarterbacks are in the playoffs right now, like Tua and Dak. But yeah, I think the Lions are a very good example on what happens when you invest in Jared Goff, when you invest in another running back, when you go get David Montgomery, when you just keep investing in the team and they'll get there. This Detroit getting to this point started 3 years ago. This is a process.
Yeah.
And a lot of fans can't understand nor respect the process. It takes a long time to build a culture more than anything. Like, you can have the football team, but if you don't have the culture, you're going to end up like the Steelers right now or like the Cowboys. So the last thing I wanted to say about Dan Campbell, he coached a great game. They played a great game. The offensive line is my MVP. I'll tell you right now, Jared Goff enjoyed the comfort of quality pass protection the entire night. He completed all 21 passes attempted when not under pressure for 266 yards and a touchdown.
Wow.
The second most non-pressured passes without an incompletion in a game since 2018. The offensive line was great. They didn't have not one time in this game did I think, Jared Goff looks a little bit uncomfortable. Not one time. And then on NFL research, it says in a true battle of sharp passers, Jared Goff had 121.8 passer rating and Stafford had 120.9. Had the second and third highest passer ratings, respectively, in the playoffs versus a team that a player played for previously. Only the Eagles' Rodney Peete, 143.3 passer rating in the 95 wildcard game against Detroit was higher, which is weird, right? So Stafford had the second highest passer rating ever playing his former team in the playoffs. And the number one guy was also somebody that was playing against Detroit. So it's just like a fun fact. But yeah, this was a great game. We definitely got our money's worth.
Yeah.
This was the one that wasn't on Peacock. This is
thank God
the Dolphins game on Peacock, and
thank God. That was so annoying. And you talked about the offensive line being your MVP. For me, I gotta go with Laporta, man. Laporta, a guy who just a few days ago was nursing an injury that everybody thought was gonna be he's not in the playoffs anymore. He's not gonna come in. He had a ridiculous cast on or something, but only 3 catches, 14 yards, but he scored the touchdown, man. And he came in and he looked really good doing it. So credit to Laporta for showing that Detroit toughness, wrapping up his knee, wrapping up whatever it was, coming out, scoring that touchdown and really just showing that Detroit toughness. And even we were both like, holy shit, he's going to play. You know what I mean? So I got to give my MVP to him.
All right. And our next game, we both took Buffalo to get this win at home. The Steelers, they came out and they looked just awful. They couldn't get a first down. Mason Rudolph didn't really look like the guy. I was saying put Trubisky in. Like, this guy absolutely stinks. This guy stinks. He did. And the Bills, they scored early in this game. And that continues to be a hot streak for them, coming out hot in these games that they've been winning. But the Steelers did kind of come back into the game in the beginning of the second half to make it at least a little bit competitive. But then the Bulls eventually pulled away. Mike Tomlin in his press conference, they asked him a question about his career and his contract only has 1 year left on it. And he just walked out of the freaking room.
Yeah.
And
Not having it.
I don't have a problem with that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I was always told growing up, there's a time and a place for everything. And it's probably not like the following day after you're eliminated from the playoffs or the following week, they do a whole State of the Union. They thank the fans. They talk about state of the franchise. Usually the owner will be down there answering questions. It's just not a good time to ask Mike Tomlin about his career. Like, obviously he's upset about this loss right now. And I just think it's funny that he's getting a lot of the blame when Mason Rudolph is his freaking quarterback. Mason Rudolph is not a starting quarterback, and he had to go to Buffalo to play the hottest team in the AFC. I think Mike Tomlin did the best with what he had. I would have liked to see Najee Harris get going a little bit more.
Yeah.
He was under 50 yards rushing. That wasn't very good, so Buffalo played it good. Buffalo knew that if they just stop the run and make Mason Rudolph beat you with his arm, he can't. If he could, he would have been a starting quarterback, and instead of a third stringer. He wasn't even a second stringer.
That's exactly what we talked about too, was the run game. Stop him and get Mason Rudolph to beat you. That's exactly what happened.
I think Buffalo continues to look like a team that just seems different. There's something different about them than the other years. There's Josh Allen throwing interceptions is normally a big story. What is Josh Allen going to be in this game? I thought Josh Allen looked exactly the way he looked in the regular season. That run he had, the 60-yard run or 55, 52, he ran, and you can just tell, like, he's playing at a higher level. And I do think for this weekend, Rick, there was a lot of teams that just looked like they didn't want it. And the number one way to tell a team doesn't want it is not tackling, right? How many? We'll get to the Eagles later, but tackling.
Oh, yeah.
It's just, I thought there was plenty of plays, including that 52-yard run, where the Steelers just, I don't know if they didn't want it or if they really thought he was going to slide, but I mean, you should know by watching film that Josh Allen's probably not going to slide. Like, that's not new information. It's not like Aaron Rodgers did that. Or I could see if like Daniel Jones snuck one. But this is freaking Josh Allen. Like, this is what he does. He runs the football. His over-under was at 67 rushing yards going into the game. He's literally part of this offense. Like,
wow. They
run for over 100 yards every game, and sometimes they do that with Najee Harris or with
Jalen Warren.
No, with Cook only having 40 yards. They can still get to over 100 yards on the ground with Josh Allen. He is, and you look at Jalen Hurts, who was also a running quarterback. You don't see him run anymore. Josh Allen has refused to give this part of his game up. And unlike other quarterbacks that we've seen run, Michael Vick, Lamar Jackson, those are like the two big ones that come to mind.
Yep.
Josh Allen's a little bit stockier, a little bit bigger, and it seems like he's not really cashing these checks that are supposed to come up and catch up to him. Because all the announcers, all they talk about is, oh yeah, he's gonna not slide in his first year, but year 3, he's gonna start sliding, and the Chris Collinsworth weird flap. It's like, okay, well, here we are, and he's still not sliding. This is who Josh Allen is. Josh Allen and the Bills, I had them being my Super Bowl team, and I have my dark horse AFC being the Texans, but I think with the way the Bills are playing right now, it's going to be tough for anybody to beat them because they look happy again. There was a lot of just when the vibes aren't right, man, nothing goes well. It's just a real thing. Like, even like if our vibes are wrong, this podcast doesn't go as well. You have to have vibes. Like, energy is real, and energy is something that can be felt. And I could just tell that. Remember that game where Stephon Diggs lost and he went home and didn't wait for the speech, and they're kind of turning on each other.
Stormed off, It
seems like there's been some kind of it's been unifying ever since they got rid of their offensive coordinator. There's been something about the team where it's like, okay, we have no more excuses. So collectively, it's on us now to prove that was the issue. And unlike Matt Canada in Pittsburgh, this team actually got better after firing their offensive coordinator. I know the Steelers had that one game, but I mean long term, they look better, they look healthier. and there was no Gabriel Davis, but Shakir had made a couple phenomenal plays, and then that other rookie that they had,
Hardy.
Hardy was insane.
Hardy.
Well. So I didn't think the Steelers were going to win this game. I'm going to say I don't really feel any different about Buffalo besides, better vibes a little bit, because this was a playoff game and they didn't regress, and the fans are having fun, and everything just seems like it is set up perfectly for Buffalo to make that Super Bowl run this year.
Yeah, and I agree with you basically with everything you said, and especially this last part. Did we really learn more from Buffalo? No, we knew exactly what Buffalo was going to do. You and I agreed on this game fully. They are going to beat the Steelers. They're going to annihilate the Steelers because they went with Mason Rudolph. Now, that doesn't mean that the Bills are exactly where we have them. It's no, they are going to continue to get better. And like Kyle said, this is one of those years where nobody is predicting the Bills to do a Super Bowl, to Josh Allen have a Super Bowl MVP. It's one of those quiet years where week 18, they won the AFC East, got the number 2 seed, and then came into the wild card game and demolished the Steelers. And they're going into the division game with just a lot of confidence. And, I think we're both going to have this at the end of the day, but Josh Allen is the MVP of this game. In a season where they got rid of Dorsey and they bring in Joe Brady as their offensive coordinator, you start to look at the run game more. You start to look at James Cook. James Cook is a 1,000-yard running back. Now this Bills team is all of a sudden level on the offense. You don't need Josh Allen to go and win you these games, but like you said it, Kyle, he's not going to give up the running game. He knows how effective he can be out of the pocket, sprinting downfield. You saw that from his 52-yard touchdown run. Now, that was also the Steelers' lack of fundamental tackling, but he still gets 30 yards, 40 yards. If he does get taken down, he's still a playmaker in that aspect. He had more yards, I think, rushing than James Cook. Well, he was 5 yards short. Okay. So he was the second leading rusher on the team. But yeah, Josh Allen was the MVP in this game. He had 3 touchdowns, 2 to each of his tight ends, Knox and Kincaid, and then to Shakur. And like you said, Hardy, another guy that is, coming to life as a rookie receiver. Not too much from Stephon Diggs. He had 52 yards. Leading receiver was Kincaid. But really, when you look at the stat sheet, he spread the ball around. Josh Allen spread the ball around to everybody. Everybody ate in this playoff game, and that is a well-balanced attack. You've got James Cook rushing for almost 80 yards. You got Josh Allen rushing for 70-plus yards. It's a balanced attack that the Bills have, and you pair that along with how dominant this defense was against, a Steelers team that really didn't really belong in the playoffs, let's be honest. But they showed that dominance. If you're going to go in and you're going to go up against a team that shouldn't be in the playoffs, dominate them like they shouldn't be in the playoffs. It's exactly what the defense did. There was no answer Mason Rudolph, Deontay Johnson, Najee Harris, Jalen Warren, Mike Tomlin had for this defense. Again, we said it before this game. If you can stop the run duo of Jalen Warren and Najee Harris, and you have Mason Rudolph trying to beat you, you're going to succeed in this game. And what do? They shut down the run game, and they had Mason Rudolph try to beat them. They only came up with 17 points, while the Bills came out with a dominating, convincing win against the Steelers team. And now the Steelers, that is 5 straight playoff losses, and that is 7 years worth of playoff losses, the most in franchise history. Bills absolutely dominated them.
They haven't had a team in a while that you've actually respected in the playoffs. True. NFL research, Josh Allen's 52-yard touchdown run was the second longest touchdown run by a quarterback in NFL postseason history. It was only 4 yards short of the number 1 quarterback run. Do you know who that was?
I don't know about that one, Jim.
Try to guess. Just throw somebody out there. I'll give you. Oh, okay. That was a good one. Colin
Kaepernick.
Kaepernick.
Oh, in the Super Bowl?
Nope. It was actually, and this is the twist in the whole thing, it was in the divisional round against Green Bay
Oh,
in
wow.
2012, which is a
Yeah.
game that's going to be happening next week. So I thought that was going to be,
Cool.
I was super pumped about that.
That's a cool one. That's a cool one. That's a cool
Found
stat.
something. I found something.
Check it out.
All right. My MVP in this game, I want to give it to Dalton Kincaid, but I'm going to give it to Josh Allen. I'm going to give it to the quarterback. And Kincaid had an incredible game. If I could, he's offensive player of the game. But if you're talking most valuable player, it's got to go to Josh Allen. He didn't put his team in, bad positions. He had one interception, I believe, or was that week 18?
No interception.
I'm thinking of the one where he was running to his right and he threw it. No, that was against the Dolphins. A lot of football in the last couple of days, but yeah, he didn't put his team in any bad situations, and he came out. It's not that run was kind of the icing on the cake for me. I was like, okay, Josh Allen, and this is kind of what they've been doing since they fired Ken Dorsey. It's that they've been like, okay, Josh Allen, we're jumping on your back. You're going to carry us. And it's working out for them. And it's also what comes with the territory is when Josh Allen and the Bills win, he's the most valuable player. But when they lose, it's his fault. And that's just what comes with the position. So he came out and had a good game. So I'm going to give him the credit that he deserves.
Love it. Love it. I totally agree with everything you just said.
All right. Do you have an MVP?
Yeah, I said Josh Allen at the beginning, kind of, sort of. And that's why I was like, I think you and I are both going to have the same one. It was Josh Allen because of what he did. And basically like what you said, right? Like the offense lives and dies with Josh Allen. We've blamed him before for his, kind of gunslinger, ways and getting those interceptions, 1 or 2 interceptions that really cost the Bills. But in this one, he threw 3 and he rushed for 1. That was the offense, man. Josh Allen was the offense in this game, and that's why they dominated.
All right. It's time to get into a game that is probably going to make people that love the Eagles, people that say fly Eagles fly, it's going to make them cringe. Now,
die Eagles die.
Die Eagles die. This was kind of I didn't realize there's a lot of things that people say that just don't really register with me. One of the things is Philly has the most toxic fans in the country. I've never really noticed, to be honest. But I've also kind of lived in a downtown city of Miami for a large portion of my young adult life. So I don't know. I just noticed people in the city, they seem more rude because they're in a hurry and there's places to be. And there's just a different set of cultural rules in the city. And I guess Philly's kind of tough on each other, and that's just the way they are. I just respect their culture. Like that's what they do. They fucking cuss a lot. They talk shit. They don't talk about their feelings very much. That's what you do in Philly. And
yeah, that's true.
I always thought it was cool. I was like, that's their shit over there. But you're really seeing fans turning on each other. There's fist fights at the stadium. This got totally just blown out of proportion. Philly shouldn't have lost like this in the first place. Way too talented to go down like this. Some people happy about it because Sirianni talking shit to the Chief fans, saying like, what did he say again?
He said, how about that, Chiefs, or something like that? Yeah. I don't hear you now, Chiefs.
I don't hear you now, Chiefs. Yeah. And then meanwhile, you can't even captain his own ship. So this was actually really sad because Jason Kelce did announce his retirement today. We made a post on our YouTube page about it. And the Eagles, they couldn't tackle. We tried to wait, but I think I mentioned it like 2 times already because it was so difficult to watch, man.
So bad.
Philly was tackling at best a Pop Warner level. I mean, they weren't wrapping up. They weren't going low. Like and that's where it kind of is like, did they not want it? And then Trey Palmer, what a game Trey Palmer had. Trey Palmer went absolutely off, multiple touchdowns. not the guy I thought. Mike Evans was great. He had an uncharacteristic drop, but Palmer ended up scoring on that same drive, so it's not a big deal. Totally not like Mike Evans. I expect that to be different next week. But I think for Tampa, they really just kind of stuck to what they do well. And let's be honest, nobody felt great about this team entering the wild card week because of their game against the Panthers, that ugly 9-0 game. No, there was just not a lot of good feelings about any of these teams. It was like, I don't want to bet on that team or this team. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. And it was weird that in a game where you felt kind of equal about both teams, that one of those teams blew the other one out, which tells you the state of the Eagles is either much worse than we thought, or the Bucs are better than we thought. Which one do you think is the case? So maybe it's also just the case of peaking at the right time. But and I'll give you the floor. I just want to say I absolutely love Baker Mayfield and what he accomplished. I've said it a couple times on this podcast. I remember watching him in his first year wondering, why can't we get a guy like that? He was that guy. He was the way you feel about CJ Stroud. That's how I felt about Baker Mayfield, because I was watching him just go toe-to-toe with Lamar Jackson and scoring 40 points and taking shots. And Baker's always been a baller, man. Yeah. And the one thing is that a lot of players that are kind of a little bit crazy in college, like Johnny Manziel, and they kind of fade out of the NFL because they're not focused or they don't like studying. Baker Mayfield came off as that guy, but I think we've had enough time now to kind of realize that there's more to Baker than that, and that he does care about football, and he does care about his teammates, and he's willing to put in the work. I think so easy as a society, we love to just throw people in categories. Baker Mayfield, he's just another Johnny Manziel, you know,
another Browns failed quarterback.
He's just another name it. And it's not the case, man. These are individuals that are totally different, in every single week, every single game, they have an opportunity to prove it to us. And I think that's really what I took from this game. Baker Mayfield, I felt like I just had so much more respect for him as a player exiting that game, and even now, than I did going into the game. And I love it. I think it's great for the NFL. I think it's great for Baker. He talked about his wife not even moving to LA last year because she's like, okay, we just moved to Carolina. And he did his press conference in Carolina, and he's like, my girlfriend's not really happy with me because I had to leave her in Cleveland to do all the packing, right? She's doing all of this work all the way to Cleveland. Then he gets the job in LA. He's like, don't even go, because like, I'm not going to make you go through this again. So I really felt like going into this season, I mentioned this story because I thought for Baker Mayfield in his personal life, I felt like he wanted to give his wife some certainty, a little bit of certainty. And he knows that that's directly tied to how he performed this year. And Baker Mayfield is having one of those years that he resurges like Ryan Tannehill.
Yeah, and credit to those wives, man, unsung heroes.
Yeah, for real.
Of
like the military.
of those NFL players. Really, you know, you got a journeyman quarterback, a journeyman wide receiver, journeyman whatever. Those wives are right there behind them, supporting their husband, their person, right? So shout out to them, because it's not really talked about, but it should be very well respected. So you know, shout out to him and Baker Mayfield and this Tampa Bay team. You know, you asked me, did they play better? Are they peaking at the right time? Dude, they played so much better than I expected. We've talked about it before, where we look at this NFC South and we're like, they should not be hosting any playoff game, no matter what team comes out of it. And guess what happens? They steamroll. They absolutely dominate the Eagles 32-9. And this is behind a 337-yard, 3-touchdown performance by Baker Mayfield, no interceptions, a guy that throughout the regular season has done something like that in the fourth quarter, and then the other team comes back and wins it. And he's just left there like, fuck. You know what I mean? Like, I did everything I could, but my defense, you know, kind of lost it. But the defense was not going to lose this game. The defense made the Eagles uncomfortable. They made Jalen Hurts out of sync with anything the offense was trying to do. They were sacking him. They forced a fumble. DeAndre Swift couldn't get going. The Eagles' best receiver was, Devontae Smith, and Devontae Smith is a good receiver, but you could tell they were missing really the playmaking ability of AJ Brown. Devontae Smith had a hell of a game, 148 yards on 8 receptions. He was balling out on that offense, and he was the only one doing it. He really was the only one doing it on that offense. He said, I want to credit Devontae Smith and because the Eagles lost, by fucking 23 points. I want to give a lot of credit to Devontae Smith because they said, hey, you're going to be the number one. And he said, got it. And he went out there and he played like a number one receiver. And so I just want to tip my cap to him because he deserves it.
Yeah, he would be a number one receiver without AJ Brown. And I don't know if AJ Brown would have made that much of a difference because this is the stat I was going to say. Jalen Hurts faced 13 quick pressures in Monday night. That ties for the most quick pressures faced in a game in Hurts' entire career, including the playoffs. So I think that's really kind of why the passing game wasn't working as well as normal is because Jalen Hurts hasn't been pressured like this. It's not the normal. This is one of the best offensive lines in the league. And it's not like we came into this game thinking that they weren't going to hold up. I mean, we thought that they were going to hold up. And it's kind of sad too, because with Jason Kelce retiring, it's like, at least you want to feel like your offensive line, did their job. And we saw pre-snap penalties. We saw constantly Buccaneers getting into the backfield. Just not a good day for anything. There's not really anything besides Devontae Smith that you can point to and be like, that was a good thing. And then Rick, who was the Buccaneers quarterback last year?
Tom Brady.
What about the year before?
Tom Brady.
The year before that?
Oh my God, who was it? Oh, wasn't it? It was Tom Brady. Okay.
Tom Brady, yeah.
3 years, yeah.
I just wanted to preface with that because what I'm about to say,
I think I know what you're about to say.
You might want to stand up because you're going to end up standing up after I say this. Baker Mayfield is the first Buccaneers quarterback to have 300 plus passing yards and 3 touchdown passes in a playoff game in Tampa Bay Buccaneers history.
Wow.
Not even the GOAT himself had. I mean, Jordan Love with the record breaker, CJ Stroud, Baker Mayfield. What an amazing just weekend for the underdog quarterback.
What a unique collection of quarterbacks for these stats to be held by. Like you said, what just underdogs all the way.
And for my MVP in this game, I know I'm not creative. I'm going with Baker Mayfield. Man. The one play that stands out a lot, and it was just Baker made so many just top tier plays. He made a handful, like a dozen. He made a dozen throws probably in this game that you only see elite quarterbacks make. I'm not saying Baker's elite. I'm saying he played elite. If he can continue that, then we could revisit that conversation. But Baker Mayfield, he's the reason that Tampa got out. I mean, you can credit, this was a team win. So it's hard to give it to one guy, but I'm going to give it to Baker. The one throw that stands out the most was at the very end of the game when Philly brought a bunch of pressure and Baker just threw it up.
Yes.
Right up the seam to Chris Godwin. And Godwin made that. It's just, that throw was everything. It was recognition. It was good ball placement. It was trust. It was just, you could tell Baker, he's slinging it. That was one of those plays where you're like, oh, this guy can't miss. This guy can't miss.
And during the game, we both saw that. We're like, he's throwing it up. Oh my God. And then who was there? Godwin, just with the catch. And we were just both like, how? That was just a rainbow. You know what I mean? It was just, and it came down exactly where he needed it to be. And it turned out to be a touchdown. So credit to him, man, because he is also my MVP.
Yeah. And it was a little unknown too. Like we saw Baker in a playoff game with Cleveland, but, and he won a playoff game, but it's been a long time since that. And Baker Mayfield, he proved that he actually gets better in big moments. That's what winners do. So I just love that. I love how many quarterbacks accepted the challenge this weekend,
Yeah.
including Baker Mayfield. And he definitely, this is the best game maybe he had all season besides the one against the Packers, which could end up being an NFC championship game for crying out loud. So, yeah, man, we got the same MVP there, and that is the final wild card weekend game that we had. What a weekend.
I wanted to make one more point about that Philly game because I'm seeing the banner change ahead in Philadelphia, and it has to do with Nick Sirianni. Goes to show you that, I don't want to talk shit about an entire city's fan base, but as Nick Sirianni was heading out the tunnel, you had one Philadelphia fan throw his bucket full of popcorn at Sirianni as he was exiting out. He's like, "You're gone, Sirianni," and he threw it out. Clearly he was drunk, clearly upset with the result, but that's just a little taste of why people say that Philadelphia fans can be one of the roughest fan bases to please and just to, that are assholes really in general. So I just wanted to leave that little note.
It's so different. It's such a different approach, man.
It is.
I saw 3 years ago, actually 4 years ago, I saw Joe Flacco's game with the Chiefs in person. I was like, I want to see the Chiefs. It has to be the Chiefs because that streak was at like 8 games at that point. I thought it was going to end. Little did I know that we weren't even 50% done with the streak. But anyway, it was like 40 something to like 7. And I waited for my players to come out, and I saw Joe Flacco and I saw our head coach. I never once thought about insulting them. Like, I've always felt like, man, they really need to be loved on right now. Like, you can tell that they're down. And I just, that's so different. Like the whole, like, kick them while they're down approach.
It's different in Philly.
I just don't think that that's going to get anybody anywhere. I feel like that's a lack of emotional intelligence. Like, it's just like, it's super reactionary, and it's not enough. It's not good, man. It's toxic. That's not good. And even the game I went to week 1, I saw Sean Payton walk out of the thing and then get in his Mercedes and drive away. I was with 200, 300 fans. We all had the power. He would have heard us. He was literally 10 feet away from us. We could have all been like, "Fuck you, you're a fucking bum."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, the Raiders, are you fucking kidding me? There's a lot of things that we could have said. Not one person said anything. Not even like somebody said something, everyone else was like, "Shut up." Nothing. That's just that's not our fan base.
Exactly.
And it's crazy how different fan bases are throwing popcorn at. I didn't even hear that. That's insane. Like, he would throw his popcorn at the man. Like, dude,
you paid $8 for that popcorn, dude. What are you doing?
And it's also like, dude, what is he gonna do? Is he gonna be able to fight you? No. So like, that's like, so, to me, only a coward does something to somebody that literally is in a position that they can't do anything back.
And again, that's just a small example of one fan. We try not to like do that to an entire fan base, but sometimes, man, it just seems to hit at the right moment. But like Kyle said, that was the super wild card weekend. 6 games, 6 victors, 6 losers. Oh God, Kyle, what a crazy weekend for football. And I'm glad we were able to do it here all on the Only Football Podcast, and whoever joined us for all 6 games. Credit to you guys too. Watching football, analyzing football, talking about it, getting notes done. That's a fucking tough job. I'm just giving us a pat on the back for that.
Dude, the videos that have been posted from Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, including shorts, videos, and live streams, we had over 12,000 views.
12,000, man. Fucking credit to us. Credit to you guys who watch, who subscribe, who comment, who like. Thank you guys so much for getting us those numbers. And if you haven't already, please like this stream. It would, again, help us out immensely to get those numbers up. And that is the end of the Super Wildcard Weekend recap. We're going to get into the divisional round soon, and we're going to have our predictions later on this week. So make sure to stay tuned for that. But now, Kyle, it's time.
Top five, no debating. Top five.
Top five. Kyle?
Top five.
Of course, there's more than 5 teams left in the playoffs, but it is still the top five. That's what we're going to do. We're going to keep it that way. And go ahead and sue us. Please don't sue us. Let's get into our top 5 for the last 8 remaining teams in the playoffs. I can't remember. I believe you went first last time. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah. I went first last time, I'm pretty sure.
Okay. All right. So I will go first this time, and look, this was a tough decision. These last 8 teams are the best in the NFL right now. So, take it for what it's worth. Remember, it's the top 8. There's still like a ton of other teams, 24 other teams that aren't on this list. So my number 8, starting off, is going to be the Bucs. Why the Bucs, Kyle? Why the Bucs? I know they just beat the Eagles 32-9. Their defense was awesome. Baker Mayfield, broke a franchise record, 337 yards, 3 touchdowns. I just think 7 other teams are better than them. And that's it. That's it. That is it. Plain and simple. That is it, right? We talked about how good they are, and they proved that in this wild card round. I just think the other 7 teams in these playoffs are going to be overall better than the Bucs. So at number 8, I've got the Bucs.
Yeah, I got the Bucs too. And it's not so much a hit on them. It's just the fact that they're even in the conversation, I don't even think Buck fans would be like, what? 8? Yeah, yeah, 8. But it's still, there's still time for them to prove that they can move their way up the chart. It's just, it would be very much of an overreaction to just be like, oh, the Tampa Bay at 3.
Yeah, top 4 teams.
Yeah, but the way they played, it makes me want to shoot them up. So that's definitely a positive thing. But I'm gonna be like you. I'm gonna manage that temptation. I'm gonna leave them at 8 for now and see what they do next week. But I got them at number 8 too.
At number 7 for me, the division hate is real. I've got the Packers at number 7. Again, it's tough to really come down to 8 to the final 8 teams and rank them in order. What the Packers did to the Cowboys was outstanding. Again, 41-16 through 3 quarters, and Jordan Love showed out and showed up for sure. Aaron Jones was an absolute monster. But again, 6 teams I think are better than the Packers. Got them at number 7.
All right, at number 7, I got the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs pretty much limped into the playoffs offensively. They did run the football well with Isaiah Pacheco, and they had maybe their best offensive game so far. But a team like Miami that, although they only got 6 first downs the entire game, there was enough on display for me to feel like, okay, yeah, the Chiefs are good, but Miami's also beating themselves with their play calling and their missed tackles and all that. So I know everyone's feeling great about Kansas City right now, but it's just one game, just like the Bucs.
Yeah.
Like, the Kansas City did not come into the playoffs as a hot team. We were waiting for a switch to get flipped, and it feels like they did flip a switch, but this next week will be the real test of that. I'm going to have them there at number 7.
And my number 6 is your number 7. I've got the Chiefs at number 6. I feel the same way, man. It was one game. It was against a team in the Dolphins that, again, hasn't proven that they can beat somebody, in that's above 500 and then has a very good offense, has a good defense. The Chiefs were a great test for them. And the Dolphins, proved it again that they cannot beat those type of teams. And the Chiefs, offensively, they've had their issues. We've talked about it. Rashee Rice was finally someone that Mahomes can go to kind of quell those drops, all those drops. Like, finally, I got my guy. It may not be Travis Kelce anymore. It's Rashee Rice. and Isaiah Pacheco was doing really good. That's why I got the Chiefs at 6.
At number 5.
No, you got 6.
8, 7, 6. Yeah, sorry. At number 6, I have the second highest AFC team. I have the Texans.
Ooh.
And keep in mind that we're all the way at 6, but this can still easily be a Super Bowl team. There's only one other AFC team that I haven't mentioned yet. So, or 2. So I'm going to put the Texans there for now. I do think the kind of game they had, CJ Stroud, I love them to make a Super Bowl push. I think that they are. Oh, actually, I have the Ravens at 6.
Shut your fucking mouth. Oh my God.
I have the Ravens at 6. Look, I totally forgot about that because the Ravens are whatever. I got the Ravens there because
wow.
The difference between CJ Stroud and Lamar Jackson is we don't have a playoff game that is going to go down as memorable as what CJ Stroud just did as a rookie. That game doesn't exist. Now Lamar Jackson's playing at an MVP level. He's probably going to win MVP, but I still think that what the Texans just did against the league's best defense. Okay, so now they got to go do it again against the Ravens. I don't think it's that big of a difference from the defense they just played. And on the other side, I just think I think the Texans right now are trending in the right direction, where the Ravens haven't played a football game in almost 21 days for the starters. I don't like that for the Ravens. And it is possible to get fired on your day off. The Ravens are going to get dropped in my power rankings in a bye week, not because the Ravens got worse. It's because all these other teams, they're hot. And the playoffs is all about momentum and getting hot at the right time. These other teams, fortunately for them, they are the hottest teams in the AFC right now.
So the 49ers must be at number 5. My number 5 team is going to be the Texans. CJ Stroud, what a performance by a rookie quarterback in his first playoff game. Rookie head coach, young players all around him. What he did to the league's best defense, like Kyle just said, was just amazing. So, what they did and what they did offensively too, able to get the ball away from Flacco and score on 2 interceptions. Just amazing overall team effort by the Texans. And that's why they are my number 5 team. Kyle, number 5.
Number 5 is the Houston Texans. Everything you just said, the way CJ Stroud's playing right now, I love their chances to go in. CJ Stroud's got poise, and he has a Patrick Mahomes type aura about him. And we're going to find out. We're going to find out. I think this is going to be a really, really big game. Now, the Texans, their season could end, and it would still be considered a win, even with a loss at this point. But they're just there's a part of me after seeing that performance last week that is screaming inside my head that we're not done watching the Texans this year.
Love it. Love it. All right. Top 4. Here we go. At number 4 for me, this was a very, very tough decision. I've got the Bills at number 4. The Bills are my number 4 team. Is
that too low?
Oh, I don't want to hear it. Ravens at 6. I don't want to hear it. The Bills have been playing out of their minds. Josh Allen won that game yesterday for the Bills. He is in playoff Allen mode. And if he can continue to do that, just like Kyle and I said, they're very much well on the road to a Super Bowl appearance and possibly a victory. The Bills are my number 4 team.
All right. I gave you a hard time, but I'm not too far off with that one. But at number 4, I'm going to take the Detroit Lions.
Ooh.
I think the Lions they could easily go to the Super Bowl. We've hit the territory of Super Bowl teams. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not even a shot at any of these teams, but
Yeah.
there is there's one thing about the Lions where I'm not sure what to expect from them moving forward. They got that first win. That first win is huge. They played a great game. It was a team win. And I think the Detroit Lions are a great football team. So that they come in at number 4, potentially going all the way this year.
And my number 3, Kyle, is your number 4. I've got the Lions at number 3, what they were able to do against the Rams team. Look, it was a close game, but we talked about the heart and soul of Jared Goff, Aiden Hutchinson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Dan Campbell, the guy at the top of that team. It's just something that you want to believe in, right? They almost seem like they really are that underdog story throughout. Like it's like for 30 years now, they are that underdog. So it is just something that you can completely relate to. And you almost, if you're not a fan of one of the remaining teams, you're rooting for the Lions to really go all the way and prove people wrong and to diminish their history of those losers. And for that reason, what they were able to do, I got the Lions at number 3.
And number 3, I got the Green Bay Packers.
I fucking knew it.
The Packers. They're going to come into Sunday's game as one of the league's hottest teams in the NFL right now.
Mm-hmm.
The Cowboys, they were a hot team themselves. They had won 16 straight in their building, but it didn't matter at all. The Packers, like you said, there was a swagger about them. Like we're here to win a football game. It doesn't matter who we're playing, where we play, as long as we got this young quarterback playing at the level he's playing. And it wasn't just that. If this isn't a team win, the Packers fall way down on my chart, but it was a team win. There were pick sixes. The defense didn't allow the best offense in the NFL to do anything until garbage time.
Yeah.
That is crazy. That is crazy. This is a team that had a 20-0 lead against a Super Bowl favorite out of the NFC, or the number 2 favorite. So I think when you win like that those are called statement wins. And there's just no way that I had the Packers around 7 last week. So there's no way that they would stay around that area after what they did.
Yeah. For me, my number 2 team is the 49ers. I truly am believing in that you can't get fired on your day off. The 49ers are my number 2 team. They got the bye week for a reason. They've become one of the most dominant teams in the NFL with a quarterback who started in the middle of last season and has been able to spread the ball around to his weapons and keep that cool head on his shoulders, leading them to the NFC championship game last year. Unfortunately, obviously had that injury, but he's doing it again this year, man. He is leading him to the playoffs, leading him to the number 1 in the NFC West. Got the 49ers at number 2.
At number 2, I have the Buffalo Bills. And for Buffalo, this is going to be their 4th straight divisional round appearance for them. Josh Allen's playing at a high level. The team's playing together. The vibes are right. The vibes are everything. Yep. If you really are like, well, how did Green Bay shoot up the list? Vibes. They passed the vibe check like with flying colors.
Someone sounds like Mike McDaniel.
So did the Bills. They passed the vibe check on what was that, Sunday? They passed the vibe check, and they're playing some of the best ball. They don't even get into the playoffs without pulling off a bunch of wins to close out the season. It's all about who's hot at the right time. Buffalo's the hottest team in the AFC, and I got them at number 2.
Love it. My number 1 team is the Dallas Cowboys. No, I'm just kidding. It is going to be the Baltimore Ravens are number 1 again. I'm going to continue that. You cannot get fired on your day off. The Ravens.
Top 5, no debating. Top 5.
Do it, folks, for top 5.
You son of a bitch. And if you weren't here with us last week, I did that to Kyle like twice. It was hilarious. Kyle got my ass. I was like in the middle of it. I'm like,
The Raven. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
I love it. I love it. I do have the Ravens at number one. Again, you can't lose your job on your day off. What they've been able to do in this regular season, they've come from some questionable losses. We've mentioned that before. We're going to mention it again. But Lamar Jackson has really kind of held this team together on the offense. This defense is already great on its own. And they got a bye week because they were the best team in the AFC. And Kyle and I all season have said the AFC is the better conference. And they're going to prove it during the divisional round. I got the Ravens, number one.
And number one, I got the San Francisco 49ers. Brock Purdy and the 49ers. They're the number one seed in the NFC. I do have a little bit of question about them, but I got a little question about every team. Yep. There's not a team that I'm like, there's no questions. The only team that was kind of like that was the Cowboys in a way, but there was still the question about competitive teams and losing. The 49ers, though, I think if you take a step back, right, you got the three-game losing streak. They had 2 losses on the entire season, so they went through a funk. Outside of that, only 2 losses the entire year. There was a couple moments where Brock Purdy just didn't look great. I am wondering, like, is Jordan Love going to outplay Brock Purdy?
Don't.
It's worth asking because
he's
just playing really high right now. But the 49ers have a great defense. They have Christian McCaffrey. They're healthy. Deebo Samuel, the George Kittle. I could go on and on. This is the most loaded team of any team available. This team has the most talent top to bottom. They have the best coaching staff top to bottom, the best GM. They're really, to me, just they have been, besides that 3-game losing streak, they've been the clear front runner to win the Super Bowl this entire year. So Green Bay is going to have their handful, but hey, they knocked Dallas off.
Love it. And everybody, that was our top five.
Top 5, no debating. Top five.
All right, Kyle. It's time for the little chives, the little sha. Wrap the show up, Kyle. What are your chives tonight?
All right. So Mike Tomlin, after walking out of his press conference, tells the Steelers, the players, he plans on coaching the team in 2024. Mike Tomlin obviously had that crazy post-game press conference walkout, but the message comes to the players less than 24 hours after that walkout. Tomlin, who's entering the final season on his current contract, is expected to address the media later this week. Those are those State of the Union ones I was mentioning. In the aftermath of the Steelers' season-ending playoff loss to Buffalo on Monday, a question was asked of Tomlin. He turned to his left and walked out. And then later we hear a player come out and say, I want to play for Mike T. Steelers 3-time All-Pro TJ Watt was the one that said that. That was huge in my contract talks. I don't want to play for anyone other than Mike Tomlin. He said Mike T. I kind of like that. You can see in the way I talk about him how much I respect and appreciate him as a coach, as a man, and as a leader. That's my endorsement for him. And I do think there's very few head coaches that are as great of a leader of men than Mike Tomlin is. They do have some other issues in the building that they need to figure out, but I think the cobwebs in the Steelers organization right now, they're in the corners. They're not in the spotlight where Mike Tomlin is. They're in the practice habits. They're in the attitude of the players. They're in the coordinators and those type of avenues. I think Mike Tomlin's definitely one of the great coaches, and it looks like he'll be here next year. And we'll see what happens. It's his final year of his contract, so I think it's a great time to do a serious evaluation. And I do expect Mike Tomlin to be kind of looked at under a microscope for the entire season.
Yeah.
But if the Steelers can make any kind of push for There's going to be a couple of quarterbacks. It could be Russell Wilson. It could be Justin Fields. But what we do know is that this is a huge quarterback draft, and probably at least 3 to 4 quarterbacks are going to be starting from the college football, from the NFL draft. There's going to be about 4. So who are they going to replace? Well, those are the quarterbacks that we could make an argument are going to be playing for the Steelers next year. And I think if they get a guy like Russell Wilson or Justin Fields, they'll be back in the playoffs for sure.
Love it. And thank you guys so much for joining us here tonight on the Only Football Podcast. It's playoff football, baby, and it could not get any more exciting. It has been nothing but excitement in these playoffs and this wild card round. You see a lot of guys stand out, and you see a lot of teams that were expected to go far and their season this past weekend. So always a great time. And Kyle, the last 30 days, you talked about how we've gotten over 12,000 views. Last 30 days, we have gotten 32,000 views on our page. Thank you, Liberty. Well done. Appreciate it. We have gotten over 32,000 views on this page. Yeah. And it's thanks to people who are tuning in, who are liking, who are subscribing, who are sharing our page. Thank you so much, and continue to do so. Please, again, if you haven't already, please throw a like on this stream, on this live stream, and a comment in here. Let us know who you root for and what you're hoping for in the playoffs. If you want to follow me on X, go ahead, follow me at And Now Rick. You could follow the Only Football Podcast page at Only Football KR. Kyle, where can they follow you on X?
You can follow me at FTBLONLYPODCAST, and a little bonus chives real quick. When the Seahawks fired Pete Carroll, they wanted a certain coach, and the front runner, it was leaked immediately, was Dan Quinn. I'm not sure if after the Cowboys' performance, if they're still going to be interested in Dan Quinn. So I think that might make things really weird, because if they were sure that they wanted Dan Quinn, moved Pete Carroll, it's going to be funny going to work this morning. Like, are you sure about this?
You sure about
this? Are you sure? So something to monitor, but a little bonus chive there. But yeah, follow me on X, and I'll keep you up to date with all of it.
And this comment here by Crafty, if you're really the only football podcast, and we don't exactly have a choice. And if you do have a choice, thank you for tuning in here again. Thank you to Crafty, Liberty, Angel, Nick. We had Fitness Chick 4 in here from Twitch. Thank you guys so much for stopping by. Even Doggo, whose Steelers lost tonight. I'm sorry, but hey, thank you guys for stopping by and making us your number one choice in NFL podcast. Kyle, always a good time, man.
Always a good time. So